Okay, here we go. Thank you for viewing this recording. My colleagues Jeff Regensberger, Aaron Kelsey, and myself, Ann Kennedy, will be presenting about the Guiding Ohio Online program. So what is Guiding Ohio Online? Guiding Ohio Online, or GOO as we call it, is an LSTA-funded grant whose goal is to allow Ohio libraries serving a rural population to hire a dedicated technology trainer for their library. The trainer can be a full or part-time person depending on the needs of the library. And this program runs from July 1st through June 30th. Today we'll be talking about the brief history of the GOO program, then an overview of the current program, how to apply, and what the timeline for the process looks like. Excuse me. The GOO program was begun in program year 2014-2015 as an AmeriCorps program and continued as such for the next 3 years. Partnering with AmeriCorps was a fantastic way to get this program off the ground, but it did have its challenges and limitations. We at the State Library reassessed the overall program and decided to make some changes. Beginning in the program year 2017-2018, we moved to an LSTA-funded program. Since then, over 50 libraries have participated in the program, the majority of whom are repeat participants. Speaking of repeat participants, please note that there was a recent change to the administration of this grant. Libraries that have been part of the GOO program for 5 consecutive years will be requested to take a 1-year hiatus after 5 years. This change was made to ensure that LSTA grant funds do not become relied on for ongoing or operational expenditures. So what are the benefits? Well, first, it's a cost-effective staffing solution for libraries. Essentially, you're getting a staff member for a fourth of the normal cost. Second, you're able to have a dedicated technology trainer on your staff. Many of you know how quickly a patron's technology question can expand to a 45-minute instructional session. Having a GOO trainer on staff can allow your current staff members to really focus on their primary tasks. And finally, the program allows your library to try out new services or programs that you are unable to implement without grant assistance. As I referenced before, the AmeriCorps program was somewhat limited. During that partnership, there were strict rules for what the member could and could not do in the library. AmeriCorps was really focused on serving working age adults and assisting with workforce skill building. Programs for kids and teens were not really part of the scope of the program. When we were brainstorming on how to improve GOO, we really wanted to help all age groups. Now, digital literacy trainers can provide programming for all ages in your library. As long as the trainer's focus remains on the technology training, we at the State Library are okay with them assisting other library staff members in a pinch. Under the GOO program, the digital literacy trainer is essentially a contract employee of the library. You'll write a contract with the trainer for their services. So keep in mind that the trainer is paid for the time that they work. They will not earn benefits, vacation, or sick time, nor will they have OPERS withheld. Your trainer won't have any taxes withheld from their paycheck, so they will need to fill out a 1099 form for their taxes. So this is something to keep in mind when you set their wage. On to you, Jeff.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne. Yeah, and just continuing with the GOO overview, I'll point out that for this program, the Guiding Ohio Online grant, should you receive it, would pay for 75% of the cost of the program, and your library would be responsible for providing the other 25% as a cash match. The payments for the Guiding Ohio Online grant are made quarterly, with the first installment coming at the start of the grant program and remaining payments coming in subsequent quarters after your quarterly reports are turned in. One thing that we'd love to see at the State Library of Ohio is partnerships between libraries, and we always encourage you to see if there's other libraries in your area that might benefit from a digital literacy trainer and work with them. The partnerships are good because they can help you and other libraries lower that matching fund contribution. And we've had several years of library partnerships where libraries have been able to work together to provide digital literacy training for their communities. On the subject of costs, we'll be talking a little bit about wages next. I will share this isn't a hard and fast rule, but applying libraries typically select a wage between $15 and $20 an hour. And this table here will show us roughly what that looks like. It illustrates some sample hourly rates and hours that you might have people work. So for instance, in the first, if your library hires a trainer and you anticipate, say, that they'll work 15 hours per week, or that would be 780 hours for the year, and you're going to pay them $15 per hour, the total project cost would be $11,700. In that instance, the LSTA GOO grant would cover $8,775, and your library's 25% local match would be $2,925. Similarly, if you were to hire a trainer and you anticipate they'll work 35 hours, so something per week, something closer to full time, or 1,820 hours for the year, and you're going to pay them $17 per hour, the total project cost then would be $30,940, in which case the LSTA grant award would cover 75% of that, or 23,205, and your library's 25% match would be 7,735. Now, the State Library of Ohio does not require that a trainer work a certain number of hours, and we don't stipulate that you hire somebody part-time or full-time. Your trainer should work the number of hours per week that works for your community and your library. And since the grant does involve contracted help and services, we understand that there might be an ebb and flow to the expenses over the course of the grant term. But for the purposes of budgeting and planning, we do hope that this table will help. And Erin, I believe you are up next.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. All right, so now I want to talk about what to expect when applying. So the application is online, and so if you go to guidingohioonline.com, that will take you to the main information page for the GOO grant. It'll have lots of the details that we're talking about right now, as well as the application. So take a look at the questions before you begin the application. This is an opportunity to share how your library was innovative or creative in providing digital literacy and technology help to your community. It's also an opportunity to share a community technology or accessibility need and how the library has adapted to those changing needs. So make sure to share those stories or share your ideas to meet and address these needs in your application. How can the digital literacy trainer fill that need? And keep in mind, when we know this, and you know this, that program numbers don't always define the success of a program or a positive impact on the community. So make sure to tell those stories along with providing statistics if you have them. And when crafting your answers, don't assume the review committee knows program acronyms, library jargon, or the insider details of your library programs and services. You really want to provide those extra details so to put everything in context. So you can view the questions on the State Library's website, the guidingohioonline.com, and download the proposed budget form and signature forms that you'll need to complete as well. And you'll need to upload the budget and signature forms when you submit your application. On the application, you will indicate your trainer's pay rate and the hours to be worked. And one important thing to note is that you must complete the application in one sitting. So make sure you look at those questions beforehand, and all those application questions are on the website. We suggest that you have a separate document, a Word document or something, to fully complete the questions and have those ready to go when you start your application. That way you can just copy and paste them into the form, and it makes it fairly easy, but you'll just have to note that you'll do it in one sitting. You can't save and then come back the next day. And also a reminder that you can submit drafts of your application, and you can do that online through March 2nd. We strongly suggest that you do. By submitting a draft, we can give you some really valuable feedback to make tweaks and or include information that maybe you've missed. So it's a really great way to get some feedback and make sure that you're including all of that necessary information that can help your application as it's being reviewed, and just wanting to put your best foot forward. So we definitely recommend that. And then applications are due March 23rd. So due March 23rd, but if you want to submit that draft, do so by March 2nd. So we have time to look at those drafts and give you feedback and give you time to make those adjustments by the application date. So Jeff, I think you are up again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. And budgeting. I want to talk next about the budgeting and the things that you're going to see when you open up and start looking at that proposed budget form. The first line is the contract amount, and that is how much your trainer will be paid. Basically, it's the hourly rate you'll be paying multiplied by the number of hours you expect your trainer to work during the duration of the grant term. As Ann mentioned previously, remember these contract costs don't include OPERS, healthcare benefits, or paid time off. It's contract work, so it's simply the hours worked multiplied by the hourly rate. The second line you'll see on the proposed budget form is for travel. And if you're expecting your trainer to travel between locations or attend outreach events off-site, consider including mileage in your proposed budget. Next, you'll see services. These are the costs that you would pay for things like background checks, if you've got a third-party payroll processing, or any professionally printed marketing materials that you might use to support the GOO program. The last line on the proposed budget form is for supplies. And if you anticipate having to purchase any additional supplies or items to support the trainer and the work they're doing, you would include those here. Remember, though, the supplies would be in support of the trainer. Supplies for programs, for additional patron equipment, or technology are not allowable. Also, any supplies requested with grant money must be purchased in the first quarter of the program. Finally, ask yourself if you're planning on sending your trainer to any continuing education opportunities like webinars, workshops, conferences. If you are, include those in the budget under the appropriate categories. We recognize, obviously, that budgets don't always match reality, but we do hope that the applicants will be as thorough and as accurate as possible when estimating costs and turning in proposed budgets. Also, if you're submitting a draft prior to your final version, as Aaron mentioned, it's always a good idea to include that proposed budget so we can review that as well. The next thing we've got on this slide are just some tips for the budget and the application. First thing to note is that you're not required to have funds in each budget category. If you're a single library location and your trainer isn't going to be traveling, you don't need to include funds for them in the mileage line. A lot of libraries will turn in a budget that's as simple as contract work. They're just paying for their digital technology trainer. Second, ask yourself if you already have a technology trainer that you're using or an IT person on staff, ask them what technology supplies they might need to support the trainer. And if you're a new site, talk to frontline staff and find out what they think would be helpful for a technology trainer so that you can get some ideas of what supplies you might need. As with all elements of the GOO grant, whether it's the application or the reporting or the budget, we always encourage folks to reach out to us and ask questions prior to submission. It's always a good idea to have those conversations in advance. The third thing that I'll mention here is, as Aaron alluded to, you are welcome to submit a draft application for review. We are happy to provide feedback, and the deadline, again, as Aaron mentioned, is March 2nd. And this year, linked in the presentation, we've added a new online form for drafts. They can be uploaded through the drafts page on our website, and those again can be taken through March 2nd. The other thing that I'll mention, and Anne had noted this earlier as well, is that we do limit the number of consecutive years that a library can be offered Guiding Ohio Online funds. Libraries that have participated in Guiding Ohio Online for 5 consecutive years will be required to take 1 year off. And this is basically to ensure that LSTA grant funds don't become relied on for ongoing operational expenses. What we typically tell people is that if you're doing this thing for 3 or 4 or 5 years and you have determined that your library sees a need for a dedicated technology trainer in your community, it might be worth looking at ways that you can apply library resources and local resources directly to that need. So, you know, if you've established, hey, this is a good thing that the community benefits from, then we do encourage folks to figure out a way to do that at the local level. So I believe, Anne, you are up next.
Thank you, Jeff. And just one thing to note, if you have any additional questions that may have been sparked during this session, feel free to attend our Guiding Ohio Online open office hours on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 at 1 p.m. So after March 23rd, what's the timeline? Well, applications will be reviewed at the end of April and when the review committee meets later that month. In that meeting, the review committee then decides which applications will be taken to the State Library Board for approval. And the review committee may, in this time, come back to your library with a revised budget. So next, we will take applications before the State Library Board at their May 15th meeting. And libraries who are approved at that meeting will be notified immediately. On to you, Jeff.
Great, thank you, Anne. So if you get approved for Guiding Ohio Online funding, you'll hear from me at some point, and I will have a contract for you along with some other documentation to fill out. prior to receiving your award money. Once we get all the paperwork and contract things straightened out, you will have your funds dispersed after July 1st. The grant term technically begins on July 1st, and we ask that libraries not spend any money prior to the start of the grant term. So don't encumber funds, federal or local, before the beginning of the term. We would also recommend at that time that you become familiar with the reporting requirements. Because GOO relies on quarterly payments and quarterly reports, there's a lot more documentation required of this grant than most of our LSTA granted initiatives. We try to keep the process as simple as possible, and just in this past year, we've made both the quarterly financial reports and the quarterly narrative reports available to be completed using an online form. If you have any questions, Ann Kennedy here is our expert on the narrative reports, and I can help answer any questions that you might have regarding the financial reporting. So after you've been officially approved, that's the time when you want to start looking for your trainer. You can begin crafting the job description. Once you've been approved, think about ways to advertise. You might create or modify your existing contract and begin your search. We do have examples of a contract and job description available online, but you'll want to make sure that you customize those for your library and the work that you're going to be expecting your technology trainer to do. It's best when you can have your technology trainer in place and ready to start on July 1st, the program start date, so that you can get a good start on spending that grant money down in a timely manner. Ann?
Thank you, Jeff. So after July 1st, your trainer can start working. So you can really start implementing your programming ideas and beginning to gather that statistical information that Jeff mentioned. We really suggest that the program coordinator, aka the supervisor, sets up a regular touch base meeting with both the trainer and the library's fiscal agent, just to make sure that the report process is a smooth one. These meetings can be a formal sit down once a month, a touch base once a week, whatever works for your library and for your program project coordinator and fiscal officer. Aaron?
Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. As Jeff mentioned, you do have to submit quarterly financial and narrative reports for each quarter. So it's in your best interest to turn these reports in as soon as possible. I've got the due dates right up here for you, because we can't send your next payment installment until both those reports are received. And make sure that if you have any supplies that you've budgeted for that are in your proposal, that you purchase those in the first quarter to ensure that you have them as your trainer starts working. That is all we have today. We really appreciate your time. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to ask. We have project-related questions can go to Anne, and her email is right here on the slide. And any funding-related questions can go to Jeff, and you can contact him at lsta@library.ohio.gov. Again, application drafts can be submitted online at the Request a Draft Proposal Review link, and we'll send you feedback and suggestions. The last day to submit a draft for review is March 2nd. Thank you all for viewing this recording today.
Bye.
Bye.